All right, we're going to talk now to Rami Khouri, who is a distinguished public policy fellow at the American University of Beirut. He joins us live from the Lebanese capital. Rami, I wonder if you were just listening to Chris Doyle there. He talked about the destruction of Hamas being basically impossible. If that is the case, exactly what is Israel's ultimate goal in all of this, do you think?
Well, Chris is right, as he usually is, and I think his words should be taken very seriously. It's correct that I would just phrase it a little bit differently. That the organization, the formal group called Hamas, could be destroyed, could be disbanded, could be put on hold. But the sentiment in the public of Palestine and all around the Middle East and much of the world that supports the same political goals that Hamas is working for, which is achieving Palestinian rights and willingness to coexist with a Jewish majority Israeli state. That sentiment is so deep and widespread that it cannot be eradicated. And this is why the Israelis are having such a difficult time and have had a difficult time for the last 75 years. They're trying to destroy the idea that Palestinians see themselves and feel to be a distinct people politically as part of the Arab Islamic world, but that they have national rights and they won't accept to have those rights denied as they were way back in 1917 by the British working with the Zionist groups, and then later by the State of Israel working with the United States. And the continued resistance and persistence of expressing their national identity by the Palestinians is the greatest weapon that the Palestinians have, a nonviolent political, cultural, human weapon, and the Israelis don't know how to deal with it. They keep using more and more military force to the point that they've now done a genocide and want to keep doing it. And it won't work. They just don't seem to understand that military attacks and more suffering will not cause the Palestinians to either flee or surrender. And this is correct. And the real issue here is not the Israeli attack on Palestinians as such, because that's been going on for almost a century, but certainly for more than half a century in a big way. The real issue here is the relationship between Trump and Netanyahu, between the Israeli and the American governments. We have, for the first time ever, in the modern history of the Israeli-Palestinian and the Arab-Israeli conflict, we have a mechanism to monitor a ceasefire, which is the committee that was set up between Turkey, Qatar, Egypt, and the United States to oversee the ceasefire, with the Americans setting up this command base or observation base or whatever they call it in southern Israel. I mean, it's fascinating that they set it up in southern Israel because the Israelis and the Americans are very close. What we don't know still is how serious are the Americans about making the ceasefire permanent. They talk about it. They send all these senior officials. They make all these statements. Trump keeps making grandiose statements, but these are words. The actions on the ground by the United States still are not 100% clear. This is the biggest test, I think, of where the Americans are. What do they want out of this ceasefire process? Is this a historic turning point where the biggest supporter of Zionist nationalism and Israeli expansionism and militarism that's now fighting six countries across the region and got the US fighting against Iran, is this project going to finally be checked and halted, and a shift will happen into a political resolution of the Israeli-Palestinian and the wider Arab-Israeli conflict and the wider conflict between Israel and Iran and other countries in the region that are not happy with what Israel is doing? Is this a real start of a shift, or is this just another hoax and joke and cruel trick that the Americans are playing like the British played before to make us feel that they care about the rights of the Palestinians like the Israelis, but they don't really care, and they care to support Israel to do whatever it wants? We don't know the answer to that. But the fascinating thing is that we're seeing actions, words, and some actions by the US government that are unprecedented. But whether they're sincere and lasting and will force the Israelis to stop using military assault as their main instrument of engaging the Palestinians. We just can't answer that. So what we do have now are ideas about possibilities that might emerge, and we need to observe those clearly and keep trying to make the shift from a Zionist runaway zombie military machine um, into a political resolution that's fair to both sides based on international law and UN resolutions and all that. The problem is that Trump and Netanyahu have both shown that they don't really care about law. They don't really care about obligations in the UN and other places, and they
Right.
don't really care about history. So this is all of these things are mixed up together.
Rami, thank you so much for your input. Valuable, as always. Rami Khouri, the Distinguished Public Policy Fellow at the American University of Beirut. We appreciate your contribution to our understanding of this breaking news